If you think of your life as like a project and you're the architect of that project, you get to design it exactly as you want it, right? And that includes your personal life, what you do as hobbies, your work, what you do for money, how much time you spend, like what the balance is. It's incredible.
And we've just held that now for the last few hundred years, that is the way to live. We should just live for the weekend. But who's to say that that's right? When you wake up and the sun goes up and the sun goes down, there's no label on that. There's no actual day of the week. So you don't have to live by those rules that we've been sort of taught from the very start of our lives, right the way when we first started school.
Yeah, and I think it's easy because of the school conditioning, of the university conditioning, or you go into the work and you see your boss and all the other employees in your place of work doing it. You kind of internalize that idea that work is just something that we have to endure, and that we can enjoy our real life at the weekend. People talk about living for the weekend, like, oh, what are you doing this weekend? You got plans for the weekend? It's really funny, isn't it? When you think about it, it's like we spend such a huge proportion of our lives in work just hoping that we can have fun and relax in the minor proportion that is allocated to free personal time. And I remember these conversations at my old jobs. I remember going to the coffee shop at work in the office on a Monday morning, and it was all like, hey, what'd you get up to at the weekend? Oh, feeling a bit worse for wear. I've got a bit of a hangover. I had 2 big nights. And you think, wow, you like crammed all of your socializing and partying into 2 nights at the weekend so that you could then go and endure work for another week to then do it all over again. And we're caught in this cycle of like trying to cram life into 2 days. And I think certainly in the city in London, it's a lot more than that sometimes, in that people will try and use the evenings during the week to try and like really cram in as much socializing as they can, with lots of drinking culture in the afternoons after work. And then people, kind of almost just numb the pain of enduring that work week by going out and constantly getting drunk through the week, and then, suffering with a hangover the next day, which makes work even worse and feel less meaningful and less enjoyable. And it's this really vicious cycle. So I think that it's funny, from about Wednesday in the week, people are already just thinking about, what am I going to do for the weekend? They call it hump day, don't they? Because it's like you're over the hump of the week. Now, all I can think about is like, it's downhill from here. I'm just getting towards the weekend. But such a funny thing, if you zoom out and look at this rationally, 5 out of 7 days of your life, right? If your life was 7 days long, 5 of those days, so 71% of your life, if you're living like this, you're just wishing that it was the other remaining 2 days, the 29%, the remainder. Imagine for a moment, just thought exercise, which is quite interesting. Imagine it was the other way around. Imagine a world or a society where since school we'd been conditioned that it was 5 days per week, everybody did what they wanted. You could just chill, enjoy, go to the park, go out with friends, go to restaurants, do whatever you want. And then for 2 days per week, we all kind of knuckled down, were really productive, got loads done, earned our money, and then we had another 5 days of freedom. Imagine what that society would be like if you knew no different. It's a totally different world, isn't it? And now realize that the only reason that you think that that's abnormal is because of the way that you've been conditioned to believe in the world the way that it has been presented to you. But who says that it should be that way? When I went traveling and we moved abroad, I met loads of people who didn't operate in that paradigm at all. And so I think once you realize that you have ultimate control over that, it's just maybe it feels like you don't because of the people you're surrounded by or the job you're in at the moment. Really, it's a game changer. It's completely eye-opening and liberating.
It's so easy to accept what we've always been taught. I know I can resonate with the stories that you had when you went to work and speaking to people that they just were excited that they had a great weekend, but now they're dreading the working week again. When I had conversations and it was that small talk that you have in an office with somebody that you don't see that often, and you just catch up and say, hello, how are you? And I remember every time I did that with somebody, their answer or how they were was completely dependent on the day of the week that it was. So if it was a Monday, they weren't well. No, I'm not good. It's a Monday. Of course, I'm not doing well today. If it was a Wednesday, they're like, it's okay. We're halfway there. If I ask them how they're doing on a Friday, they're quick to say, I'm brilliant. It's a Friday. Of course, I'm doing well today. And I went through this in my 9-to-5 job for a few years, and nothing changed. It was always the way that no matter who I spoke to, so many people had this same outlook on life, that it was dependent on the week was actually how they felt. And I'd be interested if you're listening to this on the way into work, if you listen out for the small talk conversations you have, if it's anything like my office, you'll probably find that people are very much dictated by the day of the week in terms of how they feel. Just a funny observation. It's definitely good to look at what the other options are that we presented. This isn't a doom and gloom podcast that society is so bad how it's set up. I think we're just keen to show you that there is opportunities in today's day and age, that we don't have to follow the structure that's been set out by society all the way up until this point in our lives.
And just to add to that as well, something that I noticed that isn't necessarily even linked to the day of the week, but it's just like a societal cultural norm is, and I think it might be like a British thing. I don't know if we're, quite pessimistic as a nation, but it's when people say, hey, how are you? The default answer seems to be not bad. Yeah, not bad. It's like, what do you mean not bad? Like, it's like such a glass half empty mentality, isn't it? It's like, well, are you not bad or are you good? Because if you're not bad, then are you just doing okay? Are you just surviving? Or are you amazing? Are you incredible? Are you having an incredible day? No one would ever say that, very rarely that you hear that. But it makes you question, like, if I'm surrounded by people who are not bad, is that how I want to live my life? And for me, it wasn't. If people say, hey, I'm not bad, it always it's a personal gripe. And I always think, well, do something about it then. Like, let's change the situation because we have the control over it. It's up to us, right? We just got to make a change, put in the effort. And so, yeah, I make a conscious effort to, if someone says, how are you doing? I'm always glass half full. I'm always like, yeah, really good, thanks. I'm having a really good week, because I am. A lot of the time, if I'm not, I'll be honest and say, actually, no, I'm having a really bad week. But I won't default. If I'm doing well, I won't say that I'm not bad. So it's a slight shift in language pattern, but I think it's quite important and comes from a much wider issue, I think. Sorry to butt in there.
No, absolutely. It's a great point, that not bad. I mean, it's the default answer. But when you dig in, it's not a small thing at all, actually, the way that people respond. It sounds like we're sort of doing this like nitpicking over small responses, but actually, I think a lot of people, when it comes to a Monday, and if you ask them how they are, they've already decided that day is going to be a bad day because it's a Monday or Tuesday, up until the point where maybe you get to Thursday and Friday. That's when they can start to say that, they allow themselves to say, yeah, I'm really good. But that will make a difference to their mood, no doubt, because if they decided they wake up that it's a Monday, they almost switch the day off. They almost say, look, today's going to be a bad day. I'm at work and it's a Monday. And you almost write off a day that's going to be poor. So not a small thing, I don't think, to point that one out. So something that I came across in the book, The 4-Hour Workweek, is a term called lifestyle design. And this is probably the first time that my eyes were open to a different way of living other than just following the society's 9 to 5, Monday to Friday work week. So can you explain a little bit about lifestyle design and why you think it's important?
Yeah, the concept of lifestyle design is amazing. It's really eye-opening. It gives you a lot of control back once you realize that you have the control to design it. If you think of your life as like a project and you're the architect of that project, you get to design it exactly as you want it, right? And that includes your personal life, what you do as hobbies, your work, what you do for money, how much time you spend, like what the balance is. It's incredible that you can take active control of how you live your life and just decide what kind of work you want to do, where you want to do it, when you want to do it, like what time of day you want to work, what kind of life you want to lead outside of work. It's really important because it gives you back control over your own life and you're not just kind of coasting along on the conveyor belt, going with societal expectations. You're consciously stopping at every stage and really designing your life to align with your values and passions and desires and kind of the way you want to live. And when I read that book, The 4-Hour Workweek, which if you haven't already, you should definitely have a read of it, or even just listen to the audiobook in the car if you're commuting or on the train on the way to work. But my wife Becky and I followed the principles. Me more than her. I read the book and I was like, you've got to read this book. It's a game changer. And I took it upon myself to actively implement lifestyle design. So I used a Trello board of activities and things that we needed to do to create the lifestyle that I wanted to achieve for ourselves. So it sounds cheesy, but like we actually did it. We architected a life that we wanted to experience. So at that time in our lives, that was the ability to travel, to be free, to live anywhere in the world. And so we did. We left our jobs. We were both in good, high-paying, secure, respected jobs in the city, and we left and moved to Thailand, and lived in Chiang Mai in northern Thailand, and moved to Bali and lived in Canggu and Seminyak and all over, and then went to Vietnam and lived in Da Nang in Vietnam. And all that time still running our businesses from a laptop, like whilst we were living on the other side of the world. And I think it's some of my ex-colleagues who were at the job that I was working at and some of my friends at the time, I remember they were like, the look on their faces when I tried to explain what we were doing, they couldn't really get their heads around it. They were like, well, firstly, how is that possible? That's like the first brick wall that they hit, where they're like, how is that possible? Because what about like your job? What about the security? What about medical care? The NHS? Do you not care about that? Like, what about your house, all your stuff? Like, what about your job, your pension, your, the long-term incentives that you have at your work, all of that stuff. But the thing is, all of those things, all of those obstacles are just little hurdles. And it's like, well, is the prize at the end of it worth solving those hurdles? is a life of autonomy, freedom, flexibility, control, enjoyment, and passion worth figuring out how to rent your flat, sell some of your stuff, and get private health insurance? It's like, if you could figure those things out, it seems completely menial to like focus on the obstacles rather than the end result, because the end result so far outweighs the hassle that you have to go through to get it. And for me, looking back now, we're at a different point in our lives now. We've settled back in the UK for now. We've got 2 children now. But that move was the best thing we ever did, because it showed us a whole new side to life. We felt initially like maybe we're the only ones doing this, or we're going to be on this like lone path. But as soon as we got there, I met lifelong friends from all over the world who see the world the same way that I do and that we do, who earn ridiculous amounts of money with their businesses. They run them all online. They use just a laptop to run them. And they've got that flexibility to work where and whenever they want. And, they're not stressed. They're not burnt out. They're not, drinking every night of the week to try and mask the pain of not having a fulfilling work life. So I think for many people, stepping off that conveyor belt and embracing lifestyle design, that can be the key to overcoming the Monday blues. Because if you're doing the work you love, there's no reason to dread Mondays. You look forward to Mondays if that's the case.